Welcome back to the Subnautica Ultimate Challenge, where I attempt to beat the game while following a set of rules that make it tougher than a cured boomerang. This is part 4. At the end of the last episode, we had just gotten the access code to the captain's quarters on the Aurora, so now we're preparing to visit that largest of wrecks. There's some extra equipment we'll want for this journey, starting with the propulsion cannon. The propulsion cannon isn't strictly required for the Aurora. You can get everywhere without it, but it's really convenient to be able to just move obstacles out of your way. We're getting creepvine samples here, but it's not for eating. It's for the fiber mesh we'll use to craft our new radiation suit. I hadn't bothered to build one yet because you can't use a radiation suit at the same time as a rebreather, which lets you conserve oxygen deep underwater. Instead, I've just avoided the radioactive areas near the Aurora. Until now. The trip to the Aurora has a reputation for being dangerous, but it's not really if you take a direct route. Yes, there are a lot of Reaper Leviathans in the crash zone, but none of them spawn between the safe shallows and the Aurora. The only one that comes close is a Reaper the community has named Sammy, who spawns by the Aurora's northernmost point. But as long as you don't stray too far north, even Sammy will leave you alone. Wait, is that Life Pod 4 up there? Do we have the hint for Life Pod 4? Better avoid it just in case. We arrive at the Aurora without incident and climb onto the wreckage. You might think it's impossible for us to surface at the Aurora without breaking our rules, but there's a simple reason why it's not. Roll tape! To make the game possible, we will allow surfacing indoors so that we can still access our life pod, sea bases, and we'll count the entire area enclosed by the Aurora as indoors as well. Ow! Okay, crawlers, that is it. Time to say hello to my little friend. Some say that skyrays are the only flying creature in this game. Let's add crawlers to that list. Ow! Don't worry, buddy, you'll get your turn. The propulsion cannon doesn't actually do damage unless it causes collisions, so there's nothing stopping us from sending these nasty little crabs into the stratosphere. The propulsion cannon's also handy for moving the Aurora's debris out of the way so you can get past it. Although it's not strictly necessary, as you can jump over all this stuff, so it's up to you whether you want to bring one. But you should never bother to bring extra batteries, medkits, or water to the Aurora, as you can find lots of that stuff littered throughout the area. We enter the reactor room, where we repair the breaches that are leaking radiation into the nearby environment. This will give us the freedom to travel anywhere without a radiation suit. That's pretty much the main reason we came here as soon as we had the code. We'll have to be careful swimming around the reactors, as the waters are infested with— Ah, that's a bleeder! Get it off me! Get it off! Get off! At this point, I'd like to note that the repair tool is not considered a weapon. After repairing the reactor, we find an abandoned PDA with an important piece of information. It tells us why the Aurora came to this planet in the first place. And the answer is the Degassi, that ship that crashed here years ago. Apparently, Paul Torgal's insurance company paid to have the Aurora swing by this planet and look for survivors. That is the reason we were shot down and crashed. We got burned, literally and figuratively, because of the Degassi. This plot point underscores how remote this planet is. Nobody comes anywhere near here by mistake. We enter the captain's quarters and get the final transmission from Altera HQ. It contains blueprints for an escape rocket that can get us off the planet, but we're not going to try to use it until we can find a way to shut off that quarantine enforcement platform that is shooting down every ship that tries to enter or leave. We download the data from the Aurora's black box, which gives us a play-by-play of how the crash happened. I'll never forget reading this line, learning that only one life sign remained after 8 hours. The first time I played, it was a shocking revelation. That one life sign is me. I'm the only survivor left. Everyone else, everyone in those radio transmissions, they're all gone. This is when the game confirms you are completely isolated and on your own. It's also the first time we actually learn our own name. This next area used to have an interesting bug. The console just inside this door would give you the blueprints for the repulsion cannon without giving you its databank entry. This would get you into a state where you could never unlock the databank entry for the repulsion cannon. It was the bane of 100% runs, as activating that console would make Rule 1 uncompletable. Thankfully, they fixed this issue in a later patch. We use the propulsion cannon one last time to unblock this exit. Just gotta pull this. Hang on, just gotta get this out of the way. Oh, come on, get unstuck. There we go. Without the propulsion cannon, we would need to go all the way back around out the way we came in. As the radiation recedes, we return back to why so hard. Apparently because we're the only survivor of a ship that was shot down by an alien platform enforcing a quarantine on a disease that we're now infected with, there's a lot of reasons why so hard. Obviously, our most important task once we're back is to make our base look really cool using all our new decorative items. Put this here, put that on our bed, that goes there, that goes there, that goes there. After making the place feel like home, we have something to eat. Ah, not creepvine. We fill our bioreactor, grab our rebreather, swap out our batteries, set up a carryall to store extra water, and visit LifePod 6, which is no longer inside the radiation. That's when I notice our blood kelp has fully grown in. This means we have enough blood oil to make benzene, the ingredient needed for the reinforced dive suit. Putting this on cuts all our damage in half and gives us resistance to heat, which means we can comfortably dive into the nearby thermal vent to build a thermal reactor. Oh! Okay, it's not heat resistance against the very hottest water, but that's where the reactor generates the most energy. Adding a power transmitter links the reactor to our base, so we now have a constant source of energy that does not need fuel or sunlight. Next, we're going to expand our base again, because we've really been neglecting Rule 9. The only way to hatch eggs in Subnautica is to place them in an alien containment module, so that's what we're building next. The alien containment takes 5 glass to build, which means 10 quartz. I edited out a lot of resource gathering for this one.
Aquariums provide an ideal opportunity to study alien fauna up close.
All we have to do is drop our eggs inside and wait for them to hatch. Waiting around is boring. Let's go do something dangerous. Our destination now is the northwest portion of the map. We're looking to establish 2 bases near life pods 13 and 2. Our first stop is the northwest mushroom forest, where we will find life pod 13.
The biomass in this area is dominated by plant life.
After building a little mini base and grabbing the PDA from the life pod, we head to the nearby wreck. In another clever piece of game design, Subnautica will stop spawning in fragments that you already have the blueprints for. This keeps things fresh and prevents you from feeling like you're just finding the same things over and over again. But it does make this wreck seem a little empty. There is, however, one unique PDA that we need to get here. This PDA records a conversation between some of the Aurora crew members while they were scanning for the wreck of the Degassi.
We run the scans, we show them we didn't find anything, and we say thanks for the free dinner. Clear? Sir, there's something odd on the surface scan here. Turn that recorder off.
After finishing with the wreck, we head to the largest mushroom tree. This one is so large it has multiple cave systems contained within it, and one of them has a valuable treasure. And there it is, our very first cuttlefish egg. There are a total of 5 cuttlefish eggs in the game, and like Ash Ketchum, we gotta hatch 'em all! We store the egg in our mini base. Later, we'll bring it back to Why So Hard, where we can hatch it in the alien containment. We've been gathering resources in the mushroom forest, and now have enough to build a second mini base, and so we leave for our next destination. We're now headed further north to an area called the Blood Kelp Zone. It's very similar to the Blood Kelp Trench, the godless terror of a biome we encountered in Part 2, but I don't find the northern Blood Kelp Zone nearly as unsettling. I think it's because it's less claustrophobic, with a lot of space to move around, while the Blood Kelp Trench just has 2 dark walls closing in on you from either side, and an ominous blackness below you. Let's stop talking about the trench. When we go to the bottom of the Blood Kelp Zone and turn back to the south, we see a gigantic cave entrance.
Local scans show a nearby opening, leading to a biome with extensive fossilized remains.
Wait, fossilized remains? Didn't we read something about a cave full of fossils last episode? There must be another alien base somewhere in this cave system. Well, first things first, we're going to establish a fairly major mini base here. We set up our base with a fabricator, locker, and of course, a beacon. We start unlocking some of the new scans that are here, like this blood crawler and this uraninite crystal. The blood crawlers are a scarier relative of the crawlers we've met before. Ow! And apparently they're jealous for attention. After getting the basic scans of the Blood Kelp Zone, we enter the cave to the south, which opens up into a huge cavern filled with a fluorescent brine. This is the Lost River, a gigantic cave network that runs under the entire map. There are 4 entrances to the Lost River, and we will need to visit each one as they all provide unique databank entries. These brine rivers are based on a real-world phenomenon where the heavier brine sinks to the bottom of the water, giving the impression of an underwater river. This part of the Lost River is called the Ghost Forest or Ghost Field, named after the juvenile ghost leviathan that patrols here. Listen carefully. That otherworldly shriek means that somewhere in the distance, the ghost leviathan has found its prey. I was hoping I might find some limestone in the Lost River, but the ghost field doesn't seem to have any. That's unfortunate because I don't have enough titanium to make plant pots or grow beds for growing food here. But I have a plan. We left a bunch of titanium back at our Mountain Island base. So, you know the drill. We exit our base and travel all... Oh wait, this is kind of cool. Between the Blood Kelp Zone and the Mountain Island is the Floating Islands biome. This biome consists of huge chunks of the seafloor that have been lifted above it by gigantic flora called ancient floaters. Once we get to Mountain Island, I build a grow bed and plant some gel sacks to set up a stable food source that won't require going all the way up through the alien base to get bulbo trees. I have a feeling I'll be back here again. While gel sacks don't restore as much hunger as bulbo trees, they grow more quickly. Plus they don't spoil, so you can take them with you to last a little bit longer before you need more food. We then load up on titanium and head back out through the floating islands. A couple of the islands are propping up a large wreck which we're going to explore before returning to the Blood Kelp Zone. We won't find any new blueprints here, but anything we can get will be converted into titanium which we can use for building. For example, these prawn suit fragments. You can find these fragments in a few different wrecks, but I'm pretty sure there's not enough of them to actually get the blueprint without going to the prawn suit bay in the Aurora. As I push my way out the other side of the wreck, my oxygen is running low. Actually, it's running really low. My mini base is about 50 seconds away in a straight line, but I can't travel straight there. I need to go around the mountain island. Will I make it? I travel as straight as I can so I don't waste any... Ooh, a fragment! I can get a couple titanium out of that. Okay, now I'm gonna get there as quickly as... Hey, there's another piece of titanium. Alright, no more delays. We are going straight there right after I grab this limestone. We do make it to the base with a few seconds to spare, and it's not as close as it looks. After you run out of oxygen in this game, you actually have about 8 more seconds before you black out completely, although your vision does start to fade during that time. We visit the wreck one last time because there's one more room we want to explore. I need to use my propulsion cannon to remove some debris in order to get in. This is actually the whole reason I brought it. As far as I know, this is the only room in the game that can't be accessed without it. With an inventory full of titanium, we return to our mini base in the Blood Kelp Zone.
Welcome aboard, Captain.
We waste no time in setting up our farming. Ow! Which would be a lot easier if this little blighter would leave me alone. I wasn't slipping into a British dialect there. They're actually called blighters. With our gel sacks and bulbo tree growing, we finally head to the signal that brought us here, Life Pod 2. After collecting the blueprints and signal from the life pod, I notice an ampule swimming nearby. This is the only predator that can hurt you just by touching you with part of its body, which means you can't avoid damage just by staying away from their head, but we still need a scan of it. Our first 2 gel sacks are ready to harvest, which allows us to eat them and plant 4 more. This sort of exponential growth should allow us to last until our bulbo tree is grown. Ow! This little guy will not leave me alone. Here's another scan we need. Now this creature wins the "looks more dangerous than it is" award. Despite their nightmarish appearance, crab squids are slow, they can only attack you from above, and like many other creatures, if you stay behind them, they might not even notice you. Do you see this alien-looking pillar? Does the aesthetic of the technology remind you of anything? Following these pillars leads us down to an alien sanctuary cache. When the Kara outbreak occurred on this world, these aliens were able to upload their consciousness into computers in these caches. Make sure you bring a purple tablet when you visit this place. We are unable to interact with the aliens' advanced technology, but we do get some ion cubes and a unique databank entry. Who knows what those digitized alien minds are doing in there? Sleeping? Socializing? Playing Subnautica? Back at our mini base, our gel sack count is up to 8, but we're not going to eat all of these. We're going to save 1 to craft some aerogel, a key ingredient in a thermal reactor. You see, between the titanium from Mountain Island and the resources we've gathered here, we now have enough for a 3rd mini base. So we are going to establish one in the heart of the Lost River. At the far end of the ghost field, the brine pools fall away into a massive waterfall. Or brine fall, I guess? After traveling just under a kilometer, we're approaching our destination. I'll never get over how even in the scariest and most dangerous of locations, Subnautica continues to be absolutely gorgeous. The caverns of the Lost River snake under the entire map, and this location, called the Junction or Crossroads, is actually very close to the location of Why So Hard, just hundreds of meters underground. Ow! We need to get painfully close to the thermal vent to build our power source. We complete the construction of the base and head inside. We don't have the resources for all the modules we want to build, but that's fine. You can actually find every type of resource somewhere in the Lost River, except for terrestrial plants and creepvine, and we brought those with us. We just need a little titanium for planters and we can start them growing. You may have noticed this gigantic skeleton on the way in. Our PDA tells us it's the corpse of a sea dragon, a leviathan larger than a reaper, that died from trauma to the head. What could have caused it such a massive headache? Was it listening to me tell one too many creepvine jokes? After getting our plants growing, we travel east into a chamber where the acidic green brine becomes a soothing blue color. This cavern is where we find the Giant Cove Tree, a kelp formation that is peppered with ghost leviathan eggs. Here we find nickel ore, one of the materials needed for the escape rocket, which can only be found in the Lost River. I tell ya, if I had a nickel for every time I found one of these, never mind. At the far end of this soothing area is a passage that goes even deeper, but we can't travel there yet. It's just too far, and we don't have the resources for another base. While you can find almost anything in the Lost River, you can't find titanium in the quantities we need, so we'll store what we can at the Crossroads mini-base and return later from other directions. Before we're done with the Lost River, we return to the Ghost Field to collect magnetite, silver, and anything else we might want to bring back to our main base. On the eastern edge, we find a cave that is kept filled with air by alien technology. There's nothing that interesting inside, just an alien arch that doesn't seem to work, but is a good place to refill our oxygen. Okay, how is an eel like an eagle? Apparently they both fly. What the? How? But physics. The Ghost Field is one of the few places we can find crystalline sulfur, which we'll need for our escape rocket. And then we hear the Ghost Leviathan attack again. But this time it's not in the distance. It's coming straight for me! Quickly, I try to adopt bullfighter tactics, dodging upward to get behind it. It turns to give chase, so I dodge again. This thing can easily outrun my sea glide. Is it still following me? Yes, it is! It's right behind me! Finally, it gives up and goes after one of the river prowlers instead. It's become clear that this wimpy little propulsion cannon is not enough to protect me anymore. I'll need to head back to my main base and swap it for a stasis rifle. We stop by the mushroom forest on our way back, where we find a time capsule. Speedrunners aren't actually allowed to open time capsules because of the unfair randomness it introduces. But as we said at the beginning, this isn't a speedrun, so I'm free to see what's inside. Whoa, a poster and an arcade toy? That is unfairly good luck. Big thanks to whatever player out there left this for me to find. Now, can you tell me which rule I have never referred to in this entire series since I first introduced it? Because it is about to become very relevant. Many players, veterans even, have never seen a purple pine cone, but this location in the mushroom forest is the only place they are guaranteed to spawn. Purple pine cones can be harvested like limestone or shale, but if you're expecting something valuable inside, they may leave you feeling a bit salty. I don't know if the devs have ever explained why the purple pine cone is in the game, or why it only gives you salt, but I kinda like the mystery. Did they have some grandiose plans for it that they didn't have time to implement? Did some sneaky dev slip it into the game at the last minute as a joke? Whatever the reason, it's quite an anticlimax, and you'd have to be crazy to do something like end the video on this, right? Well, thanks for watching everyone. We've come so far on this run and are now entering the late game, so I hope to see you back for part 5 of the Subnautica Ultimate Challenge. By the way, in part 5 we'll be doing this.